All right, let's get right into my last speech as the negative. Just want to give a blanket of thank yous to everyone for being here, to observing this, and to my opponent for a great debate. So with that being said, let's talk some more about my opponent's contentions. In his first subpoint to his subpoint A to his first contention, he states that candidates pander to swing states, and this pandering is a bad thing. And it's a bad thing because with the current electoral system, a candidate could essentially just go to a swing state and win elections by the swing state. A candidate still has to win other states before a swing state will, actually become a swing state. Swing states are states that could go either way. So it's not just simply that a candidate goes to a swing state and wins the entire election. They have to gain a little bit of ground first in order to, for that swing state to actually come into effect. And yes, we saw Iowa shift colors for the first time in quite a while because of, the way that these candidates pandered to local issues such as the ethanol subsidies that Ted Cruz and, Donald Trump debated on and went after. So with a plurality vote or one person equals one vote, it's hard for me to see how a candidate could not, could just do the same thing that my opponent talks about by pandering to a swing state, but take the same process and just do it in one state or 4 states rather. So if we look at the states that have the larger population, states like Houston, New York City, California, that has states like cities like Los Angeles. I don't understand what's to keep a candidate from just staying in areas like that and talking about their issues to gain votes like that. And we essentially already see that with the way that it is being done right now. At least with the electoral system, there's 12 swing states normally, give or take, in an election. At least with the current electoral system, we see candidates having to branch out from those 4 big states and go to states like Michigan, Iowa, Ohio, states that they would probably essentially not even go to if it was just a one-person, one-vote plurality vote, because they could just essentially win the election by campaigning in Manhattan, Los Angeles, Chicago, big cities like that. He says that there's unequal. He says that there's unequal voting power, and he says that if candidates need to focus on national issues, and that's a good thing. Well, if candidates need to focus on national issues, then I don't understand why pandering to swing states is a bad thing. Rather, we see that. And that being said, let's just talk a little more briefly as to my opponent's argument that this election has that the 2 out of the past 5 presidential elections have been this has been an issue. And he made a very, very direct claim. He says because of the electoral college system, because of this system, it was an issue, and because it happened 2 times out of the last 5 elections. So if we look at the variance at time, and he stated because of that, it's a growing problem. And if we look at the variance of time, the past 5 presidential elections, we're looking at a timeline of essentially 20 years. I could maybe get behind the idea that it would be a problem if it happened the past 3 elections or 2 elections in a row, but it hasn't. So just to throw out that statistic and use it is not essentially enough to actually, a cause to warrant that claim that it's a problem because it's happened in the past, 20 years. Well, when was the last time it happened before that? Was it 50 years? Was it 30 years? If it's happened 3 times in the past 70 years, is that a problem? Is that a growing problem? I would argue no. So, today I'm going to just give you a few reasons why you're going to be voting for the negative. I don't believe that my opponent has, created a large enough reason or harm to show, why we are obligated to change our current system. Just because it hasn't worked, just because it's been flawed 2 out of the last 5 presidential elections. That seems to be the only evidence that my opponent has given to show why the current system is not working. So that to me does not warrant a claim that we're obligated at this point to fix the system. And as the and defending the status quo, I would like to further reiterate that the system has worked 52 out of 56 times. You could look at that number as a ratio, just like you could use look at the ratio of it not working 2 out of the last 5 presidential elections. Well, it's worked 52 out of 56 times. That kind of eliminates the whole idea of it being a growing problem. So, that's the first reason why you're going to be voting for the negative. The second reason is that I believe that I've presented a better case and I have done a job of defending the status quo. With that being said, I enjoyed today's debate, and I look forward to votes for the negative. Thank you.
All right, so this is going to be my last time to speak today, so I'm going to have 3 minutes on the clock. I would like to, again, like Rich said, extend my round of thank yous. Thank you to Rich for being a part of this video and, prepping and staying late tonight. That way we can get this video off to Missouri College. Thank you to my girlfriend for filming this. You're beautiful. So, that being said, I'm going to start my 3 minutes. So, again, today's resolution was that the U.S. electoral system should be reformed. As the affirmative today, it has been my job to affirm to you why it should be reformed, and I feel like I have done so. So I'm going to lay out a few of my opponent's refutations once again, and then I'm going to talk about this cost-benefit analysis that we used to weigh today's debate. Under my contention 1, I talked about how the current system was not working. In my subpoint A, I talked about it distorting the political process because candidates have to pander to swing states. My opponent mentioned that this is the same process that would happen with a plurality style of voting as it does now with the Electoral College. That meaning that candidates would pander to the larger states. But what my opponent fails to mention in his argument is the statistic that I gave in the very beginning of the debate, that according to the United States Election Project from 1787 to 2016, swing states would have a higher turnout rate. Swing states have had a higher turnout rates. Plurality voting makes Americans feel like their votes count for something. Under this one person, one vote system, Americans feel like their vote counts for something. So, if we were to install this plurality system, we would see voter turnout to the likes of we've never seen before. We can't base this current system on what would happen. In my subpoint B, I talk about unequal voting power among the states. Wyoming has 3 electors for every 165,000 people, while Texas has an elector for every 652,000 people. I talked about this inequality. My opponent points out that 2 out of the last 5 elections that this not working is simply not enough. This is almost half. In the last 20 years, we can look at it this way. In the last 20 years, 8 years of those have been determined on a faulty system. That's almost half. Yes, this is a problem. It produces inequality among the states, and it produces inequality among voters. Inequality, sorry. He again points out that candidates would stay in larger states where there's a larger turnout. Again, if we had a one-person, one-vote system, more people would turn out to vote, because essentially every state would then be a swing state. So let's talk about how he says plurality voting could diminish local issues. He doubles down on this in his last argument. Again, this is under subpoint B on unequal voting power. He talks about how plurality voting could diminish local issues. Well, I don't necessarily see why this is a bad thing, because presidential candidates should be focusing on the larger issues, like military spending, Social Security spending, Medicare spending, you name it. With that being said, I'm going to get back into my benefits today. Just one voter quickly. Today we used the cost-benefit analysis. I feel as though I have won today's debate because I presented more benefits to changing this system rather than my opponent used costs in order to going away from this system. For that one voter, that's the first voter I feel like that I've won. I presented more benefits than his costs. My second voter is that I just feel like I presented a stronger plan. I had more evidence to lay out and to back my claims. With that being said, I ask for an affirmative ballot. Thank you.